The first winter I spent abroad was the hardest. I still remember standing outside the factory gates before sunrise, my breath turning into small clouds in the cold air. The streets were quiet except for the distant hum of buses carrying workers like me to another long shift. It was nothing like home. No warm morning sun, no familiar voices from neighbors, no smell of fresh tea drifting from the kitchen. Just cold wind and responsibility. I had left everything behind for one reason, my husband. Every morning, as I tied my hair back and pulled on my work gloves, I reminded myself why I was there. This is for us, I would whisper quietly. The work was exhausting. 12-hour shifts under bright fluorescent lights, the constant noise of machines, and the ache in my feet that never seemed to go away. Sometimes my back hurt so badly that I could barely climb the stairs to my small apartment at night. But whenever I felt like giving up, I would open my phone and look at his messages. "You're the strongest woman I know," he would text. "Soon we'll have our own house. Just a little more patience." Those words were enough to keep me going. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. At night, after my shift, I would sit by the small window in my apartment, watching the glowing city lights stretch across the dark skyline. In those quiet moments, I would imagine the life we were building together back home. A small house, a peaceful life, a future where neither of us would have to struggle again. Every month, almost all of my salary went straight to him. Did the money arrive? I asked during one of our late-night calls. "Yes, it did," he said warmly. "Don't worry. I'm saving it for our future." His voice always sounded calm, reassuring, and I believed him completely. Sometimes he would even laugh and say, "When you come back, you won't recognize our life anymore." Those words filled my heart with hope. Years passed like that, long days, lonely nights, and dreams of the future keeping me strong. I trusted him with everything. With my money, with my sacrifices, with my heart. And as the seasons changed outside my apartment window, one thought kept me going through every difficult moment. Soon I would go home. Soon, all these years of sacrifice would finally be worth it. What I didn't know was that the life I thought I was building for us was already beginning to fall apart. The idea came to me on an ordinary evening. I had just finished another long shift and was walking back to my small apartment. The streets were glowing with yellow streetlights, and the air carried the distant sounds of traffic and people laughing outside cafes. I remember stopping for a moment near a bakery window, watching couples walking together, their hands intertwined. A thought suddenly crossed my mind. What if I went home, without telling him? The more I thought about it, the more excited I became. For years, my husband had supported me through phone calls and messages. He always told me how much he missed me. I imagined his reaction if I suddenly appeared at the door. His shocked face, his wide smile, the way he would pull me into a tight hug after all these years apart. The idea warmed my heart instantly. That very night, I opened my laptop and searched for flights home. My fingers trembled slightly with excitement as I clicked through the options. "There's a flight on Friday," I whispered to myself. Without thinking twice, I booked it. For the next few days, I felt lighter than I had in years. Even the long shifts at work didn't seem so exhausting anymore, because my mind was already traveling thousands of miles back home. At night, I packed my suitcase carefully. I folded my clothes neatly, but the most important things were the gifts. A warm jacket I had bought for him during winter. A watch I had saved for months to afford. And small souvenirs that reminded me of the country where I had spent so many lonely nights working for our future. As I placed the watch into the box, I smiled softly. "He's going to love this," I murmured. The day of the flight arrived quickly. The airport was alive with movement. Families hugging goodbye, travelers rushing through the terminals, announcements echoing across the large halls. The smell of coffee drifted through the air as people lined up at cafes. I sat near the boarding gate, clutching my passport and ticket, my heart beating with excitement. An elderly woman sitting beside me noticed my smile. "Going home?" she asked kindly. "Yes," I replied, unable to hide my happiness. "I'm surprising my husband." She chuckled warmly. "Oh, he's going to be very happy." I believed that with all my heart. As the plane lifted into the night sky, I looked down at the glowing city lights disappearing beneath the clouds. Soon, I would be home. Soon, I would see him again. And I couldn't stop imagining the moment when I would knock on our door and watch his face fill with joy. But as the plane carried me closer to home, a strange twist of fate was quietly waiting ahead. One that would turn my beautiful surprise into something I never could have imagined. The taxi slowed as it turned into my neighborhood, and my heart began to beat faster with excitement. I leaned slightly toward the window, watching the familiar streets pass by. Small shops were still open, their warm lights spilling onto the quiet road. A tea stall on the corner was surrounded by a few men laughing and talking, the smell of freshly brewed chai drifting into the night air. Everything looked just the way I remembered it. Home. After years abroad, seeing those simple streets again filled me with warmth. My suitcase rested beside me on the back seat, packed with gifts and memories from a life far away. The driver glanced at me through the mirror. "Is this your first time back after a long trip?" he asked casually. I smiled softly. "Yes, after many years." He nodded knowingly. "Then tonight must feel special." It did. Very special. When the taxi finally stopped in front of my house, I paid the driver and stepped out into the cool night air. The quiet felt comforting, almost peaceful. Crickets chirped softly from nearby trees, and a gentle breeze moved the leaves above the narrow street. I stood there for a moment, staring at the house I had dreamed about for so long. My home. Our home. The windows were glowing with light. That made me smile at first. He must still be awake, I whispered to myself. Maybe he was watching television, or working late, or maybe he simply couldn't sleep, thinking about me. I quietly dragged my suitcase toward the front door, careful not to make too much noise. I wanted the surprise to be perfect. But as I stepped closer to the entrance, something made me stop. There were shoes by the door. Not just my husband's. Another pair. They were smaller, clearly a woman's shoes. I frowned slightly, trying to make sense of it. Maybe a guest, I murmured quietly. Perhaps a cousin had come to visit. Or maybe a neighbor. Still, something about it felt strange. I reached for the door handle slowly. It wasn't locked. That was unusual. My husband was always careful about locking the door at night. As I pushed it open gently, the house greeted me with a familiar scent. The mixture of home-cooked food, furniture polish, and something else I couldn't quite recognize. Then I heard it. Laughter. Soft, distant, coming from somewhere deeper inside the house. My heart skipped. At first I smiled. Maybe he has friends over, I thought. But as I stepped quietly into the hallway, another strange feeling crept into my chest. The laughter sounded intimate. Close. Too close. I moved slowly down the hallway, my footsteps barely making a sound against the floor. The bedroom door at the end of the hall was slightly open, and the voices inside were becoming clearer. I froze at the edge of the hallway, my heart hammering in my chest. The laughter coming from the bedroom sounded familiar, too familiar, yet chilling in a way I couldn't yet place. My hands gripped the doorknob, trembling slightly, as if my body already knew the truth before my mind could catch up. I whispered to myself, trying to dismiss the feeling. It's nothing, just a friend visiting. But the laughter, the soft, intimate way they spoke, it wasn't like that. It wasn't casual. I crept closer, each step deliberate, silent. The wooden floor beneath my feet creaked faintly, and I held my breath, praying that somehow it wasn't what I feared. Then I saw them. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and the light spilling out painted the room in warm amber. I pressed my hand against the frame and peeked inside. There they were. My husband, sitting close on the bed, his arm around her, and her, my best friend, leaning against him, laughing at something he had whispered. Their faces lit with smiles, carefree and intimate. The sight hit me like a punch to the stomach. My breath caught, my chest tightened, and for a moment, I felt as if the air itself had turned to lead. I wanted to scream, to throw the door open, to confront them, but my legs refused to move. I whispered under my breath, barely audible. No, this can't be real. Not her, not him. The best friend glanced at him, her eyes sparkling with amusement, and he laughed softly, oblivious to the world, or perhaps to me. In that moment, The betrayal didn't feel like words. It felt like a sharp, cold hand clutching my heart, twisting it. Years of sacrifice, of lonely nights abroad, of sending every penny I earned to build a future for us. All of it seemed to crumble in front of me. I wanted to run, to escape, but my body was rooted to the spot, staring at the life I had imagined being destroyed in front of my eyes. A single thought burned in my mind, searing and undeniable. They didn't care. None of it mattered to them. I stepped back quietly, pressing myself against the wall, my mind racing. The room smelled of his cologne, her perfume, mixed together in a way that now felt like a cruel joke. My chest heaved, my hands shaking, as I realized the truth. The life I had been building, the sacrifices I had made, had been given to a lie. And as I stood there, paralyzed by shock, I knew one thing. Nothing would ever be the same again. The next step, what to do, what to say, how to survive this moment, loomed ahead, heavy and terrifying. I pushed the bedroom door open fully this time, my legs trembling but my voice surprisingly steady. What is going on here? I demanded, my words sharp, slicing through the warm, cozy atmosphere that had suddenly turned suffocating. My husband jumped up, startled, his face paling as he realized I was standing there, suitcase still in hand. My best friend froze, her laughter dying midair. She avoided my gaze completely, her eyes glued to the floor, as if she could disappear into it. I can explain, he stammered, running a hand through his hair nervously. It's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. I echoed, my voice rising, tinged with disbelief and rage. You've been here laughing, touching, lying with her while I was working my hands raw abroad. His shoulders slumped slightly, guilt flashing in his eyes. I didn't want you to find out like this, he muttered, as if that made any sense. I took a step closer, anger flaring in my chest. Months, isn't it? How long? How long were you two hiding this from me? My best friend shifted uncomfortably, finally speaking in a quiet, trembling voice. Sidra, I didn't mean for it to happen. Didn't mean for it to happen? I repeated, disbelief and hurt coiling in my stomach. You're my best friend. You were supposed to celebrate my joys with me, not betray me with him. He tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled back instinctively, my heart pounding in my ears. Please just listen, he pleaded, desperation in his voice. We never stopped loving each other. Love. I laughed bitterly, a sound I barely recognized as my own. This isn't love. This is betrayal. This is every lonely night I spent crying into my pillow while sending you money. Every sacrifice I made, wasted. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air thick with tension. The hum of the city outside, the distant laughter of neighbors in the streets, even the smell of dinner from the kitchen. All of it seemed meaningless compared to the storm in front of me. They tried to explain, fumble over excuses, plead for understanding, but I couldn't hear it. My ears were full of the truth I had been afraid to face. They had been together for months. Months of hidden messages, stolen moments, and broken promises. I felt my chest tighten, hot tears threatening to fall. I trusted you. I trusted both of you. And you destroyed everything. I shouted, my voice echoing in the quiet apartment. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. I stood there, fists clenched, breathing rapidly, knowing that after this confrontation, there was no turning back. Something inside me had shifted irrevocably, and the life I had imagined would never be the same again. The next step was clear in my mind, though terrifying. I had to decide whether to fight, beg, or walk away. And deep down I knew the answer. The room felt smaller, somehow suffocating. The warm amber light that had once felt comforting now pressed down on me like a weight. My hands shook, gripping the edge of the bed for support, as the reality of their betrayal unfolded before me. You knew, didn't you? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, but sharp enough to cut through the heavy silence. All this time, while I was working abroad, sending you every penny I earned, you two were living like nothing mattered? My husband's eyes darted away. I didn't know how to tell you, he mumbled, his voice trembling. It just happened. I thought it would end, but it didn't. Didn't know how to tell me? I repeated, my throat tight, my chest burning. I trusted you. I sent money month after month so we could build a future together, and all the while, you were meeting her, hiding from me, laughing, living comfortably, while I stopped myself, choking back the tears that burned my eyes. The apartment smelled faintly of her perfume mixed with his cologne, a cruel reminder of how close they had been, how intimate. Every corner of the room seemed to echo their laughter, their whispered secrets. My best friend finally spoke, her voice soft, almost a whisper. Sidra, I didn't plan for this. I never thought it would hurt you like this. We didn't want to hurt you. I laughed, a sound hollow and bitter. Not want to hurt me? Do you have any idea what I've sacrificed for you both? Nights sleeping on cold floors in a foreign country, sending money instead of buying food for myself, so that you two could live in comfort, without a single thought about me. He flinched at my words, guilt written on every line of his face. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I never meant for it to get this far. Never meant for it to get this far? I shook my head slowly, tears spilling freely now. You've been lying to me, betraying me, while I trusted you with everything. My heart, my soul, my life. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the weight of the truth pressing down on me. Months of letters, calls, and money, all of it, had been given to people who didn't care. I had thought I was building a home, a life, a safe future. But instead, I had been nurturing a lie. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The city outside continued its quiet hum. Cars moving down distant streets, neighbors chatting in low voices. But inside, the apartment was filled only with the heavy sound of my breathing, my heart shattering piece by piece. And in that moment, as the betrayal settled deep into my bones, I realized the most painful truth. Nothing I had done mattered to them. Everything I had built for our future had been taken from me, and I was left to pick up the pieces. I stood in the middle of the bedroom, the weight of the past few hours pressing down on me like stones in my chest. My hands were shaking, my eyes stinging from the tears I had fought back, but something inside me had shifted. For the first time since discovering their betrayal, I felt a quiet, resolute strength growing. He took a step toward me. Sidra, please, we can fix this, he pleaded, his voice shaky, desperate. I'll leave her. We can start over. Just give me a chance. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for a moment I saw the man I had once loved. Then I saw the lies, the betrayal, the countless nights I had spent alone working for a future he had already squandered. I shook my head slowly. No, I said, my voice calm but firm. There is no chance. There is no going back. He looked stunned, almost as if he hadn't expected me to say it. Sidra, please, he said again, reaching for my hand. I stepped back. I trusted you with my life, my heart, my sacrifices, I said, my voice gaining strength with every word. And you threw it all away. I will not beg. I will not cry over someone who has already chosen to betray me. This ends now. The apartment felt smaller, the air thick with tension. Outside, the night was quiet. Streetlights flickered along the familiar neighborhood, the hum of the city distant and indifferent. I could almost hear the faint rustle of leaves in the trees, as if even nature was giving me space to breathe. I bent down and picked up my suitcase. Its weight felt different now, not a burden but a symbol of everything I had endured and everything I was taking back. I zipped it up and held it firmly in my hands. I'm leaving, I said, walking toward the door. And when I go, I take my dignity, my strength, and my future with me. You can live with your choices. He tried to call after me, but I didn't turn back. I opened the front door, stepping into the cool night air. The city felt alive, indifferent, yet welcoming in its normalcy. The street stretched ahead, familiar yet somehow different, like the path of my life, once predictable, now entirely my own. With each step away from the apartment, away from him, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. The betrayal would remain a scar, yes, but it would not define me. I was reclaiming my life, my power, my self-worth. And as I walked down the quiet street, suitcase in hand, I knew this was just the beginning of something greater. The past was behind me, and for the first time in years the future, my future, was mine to write. Months had passed since that night. The night my world had shattered and I had finally walked away. The city around me felt different now, not because it had changed but because I had. The familiar streets, the bustling markets, the laughter of children playing under the streetlights. All of it felt like a backdrop to my new life, a life I was building for myself. I had moved into a small apartment not far from the heart of the city. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. The walls were painted a soft cream, sunlight spilling through wide windows in the mornings, casting gentle patterns on the floor. I had arranged a few plants along the balcony, tiny green reminders that life, no matter how harsh, could still grow. Each morning, I woke early, the city humming quietly outside. I made tea, inhaling the steam and the familiar aroma, and sat by the window with a notebook in hand. I wrote my thoughts, my dreams, my plans, careful not to dwell on the past, but to focus on the possibilities ahead. Work had become my sanctuary. I poured myself into my career, taking on projects that challenged me, learning new skills, and earning respect from colleagues who had no idea about my past heartbreak. Each achievement, each small victory, felt like a brick in the foundation of the life I was now determined to build. Sometimes at night, I would sit on the balcony, listening to the distant hum of traffic, the occasional honk of a taxi, and the soft whispers of neighbors from open windows. I would breathe in deeply and feel the peace I had thought was impossible. One evening, my friend from the neighborhood stopped by with a cup of steaming chai. "You're glowing," she said with a smile. "It's like you've finally found your rhythm." I laughed softly, sipping the chai. "I guess I have," I admitted. "It took a while, but I'm learning how to live for myself again." I had begun taking small joys seriously, morning walks in the park, weekend visits to local cafes, even simple things like arranging my bookshelf just so. Each day reminded me that happiness wasn't something someone could give me. It was something I had to create for myself. And slowly, steadily, I rebuilt not just my life, but my spirit. The wounds of betrayal had left scars, yes, but those scars were reminders of the strength I had discovered within myself. I realized that I didn't need anyone to validate my worth or dictate my happiness. As I closed my journal that evening, the city lights twinkling like distant stars outside my window, I whispered to myself, "This is just the beginning. I am stronger than I ever knew, and my future is mine to shape." The past had tried to break me, but I had chosen to rise, stronger, wiser, and free. I often sit by the balcony in the evenings, watching the sun dip behind the distant hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The city hums softly below me, lights flickering on one by one, and the air carries the scent of jasmine from the garden nearby. It is in these quiet moments that I reflect on everything that has happened. The betrayal, the heartbreak, and the life I thought I had lost. I close my eyes and let the memories come, not to hurt me anymore, but to teach me. I remember the years abroad, the lonely nights, the sacrifices I made with hope in my heart. I remember the shock of finding them together, the sharp sting of betrayal, and the heavy silence that followed my decision to walk away. But more than anything, I remember what I learned. I learned that trust is fragile, but self-respect is unbreakable if you guard it fiercely. I learned that love cannot survive on one side alone, and that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to let go. I whisper softly to the empty room, "I will never allow someone else to diminish my worth again." The cool evening breeze brushes against my skin, carrying the distant laughter of children playing in the streets and the soft rustle of leaves from the trees lining the neighborhood. Nature reminds me that life moves forward, that it heals, and that it is always possible to start again. I think about the life I am building now, my work, my friends, my small joys. And I realize that strength is not about holding on to what hurts you. Strength is about walking away, choosing yourself, and daring to hope again. Sometimes I speak aloud, almost as if the words are seeds I am planting for the future. I trusted. I was betrayed. And yet I survived. I am wiser. I am stronger. I am free. Looking out over the twinkling city below, I smile, not with bitterness, but with clarity. The lessons of the past are mine to carry, but they no longer define me. They are the foundation upon which I stand tall. A reminder that even after betrayal, even after heartbreak, life offers a second chance to rebuild, to love oneself, and to find peace. And in that quiet golden moment, I understand fully. Some people come into your life to teach you exactly what you must never compromise. your dignity, your trust, and your self-respect. I close my eyes again, letting the cool breeze wash over me. And I know with certainty that I am ready for whatever comes next. My heart is steady, my mind is clear, and my spirit is unshakable.